But now Mama's little Pookie's shocked when Mama's little Pookie walks in a room and he hears you're fired. He's shocked because we're in a culture now where every child has to get a trophy. You get a participation trophy. The world doesn't give you a participation trophy. You don't get a gold star just for showing up for work. You have to perform the task required. And see, this is a sidebar. I can go to meddling right now, but part of the problem, people, the purpose of work is functional. It's not relational. The purpose of work is to get the job done. It's not relational. People who have a worldview that work's supposed to be relational are perpetually frustrated because your boss, if he's your friend, that's a bonus. But he's your boss. And if your worldview is work is relational and not functional, you're in for a big shock. But if your mommy's little Pookie, everything's relational and you can talk your way out of everything. And all you have to do is pout a little bit and she cuts you some slack. So this is a subtle expression of the feminization of men. We've heard the term mothers love their sons and raise their daughters. And again, I'm going to keep saying this. This is not being accusatory towards this is a byproduct of irresponsible men and women overcompensating, but the phenomenon is still present. And it's very subtle in its permutations. And it's even, and my concern particularly is how it's permeated into the body of Christ. And we have a very feminized gospel. I said this before, but you look at pictures of Jesus and if he didn't have a beard, he could be a woman. Look at some of the portraits. His hair flows like he uses some special ladies shampoo. His skin is fair. Jesus' skin wasn't fair. His skin was tan. His hands looked more manicured than my wife's. And Jesus was a carpenter. Jesus' hands were callous. He's usually kind of frail. Jesus had biceps because he did heavy lifting. He was a carpenter. How many frail construction workers do you see? Think about it. When you're watching them do construction work, how many thin, frail, feeble, fair skin? They're super tan. They're usually kind of buff. The hands are kind of callous. But that's not the portraits that we see of Jesus. And then we want to know why our little boys don't want to grow up and be like him. They see Michael Vick or Tom Brady, or they see LeBron James. He's the poster child for physicality. So you're 8 years old, you're an impressionable young man. You could be Jesus with long flowing hair, fair skin, and look like your nails are manicured. Or you can be LeBron James. And it says we're not even aware of its radicality. Listen to what else he says. Never has there been a generation of men with so little direct influence from childhood by a strong, healthy male template. I'm going to read that one more time. Never has there been a generation of men with so little direct influence from childhood by a strong, healthy male template. So much of who we are and what we become comes directly by modeling. That's why you're going to hear me say it 1,000 times. You need to be in community. I'm going to say something that's going to be controversial, but this is Chris speaking. I don't have Bible per se, but I'm willing to wait till we get to heaven for you to realize I was right. But this is the danger of just being part of the audience in the mega ministry model, because you're not walking with that person. You don't see how they handle conflict. You don't see how they raise their kids. I'm not saying they're duplicitous, because that's not what I'm suggesting at all. But you need to be where iron sharpening iron, not when you're just a spectator. You need to see what happens when a child comes home with a bad grade. What happens when parents are on the brink of divorce and they work it out. In other words, what's shown from TV, I have all the respect in the world for TV evangelists. I have all the respect in the world for pastors. And I love the church, the large church, because it sends a message to the world that Christians can work together in a collaborative fashion and have influence. So that's not my point. If your takeaway is Chris is sliding the mega church, shame on you. But my point is to grow, you need iron sharpening iron. You need someone that you can be naked with. You need someone that you need a Jonathan of your David. You need a Timothy of your Paul. You need a Joshua of your Moses. You need a Silas of your Paul. You need people where you can just be raw and uncensored with, without fear being thrown under the bus. And this is a sidebar, but I'm here, so I may as well stay. When you read the Bible, you have this tiny little portion, maybe a chapter and a half about creation. Then you have this tiny little portion about the fall. And then you have this humongous portion called redemption. Yet we live in a Christian culture that when people need to be redeemed, we don't want to have anything to do with them. And God forbid if they work at church or go to church, we shoot our wounded. We don't want people with warts and bruises. And so consequently, church at times is not a safe place for people. That's why AA has a higher effective rate sometimes than the church does, because AA doesn't throw you under the bus. So please don't take what I'm saying out of context, but my point is all of this is you need to be in community. You need to have someone give you a hug. You need to have someone speak to you, someone encourage you, someone to bounce things off. You need to have someone who's excited to see you. And men will learn how to be men in the presence of men. So we're trying to build a culture of masculine men. Now, when I say masculine, remember, my definition of masculinity is not macho. Chris Bird's definition of masculinity is giving the appropriate response at the appropriate time. That's masculinity. My job as a husband, my job as a father, is to give the appropriate response at the appropriate time. I'm the beneficiary because my father gave the appropriate response at the appropriate time. If gentleness is needed and I'm harsh, that's an inappropriate response at the wrong time. If firmness is needed and I'm soft, that's an inappropriate response. Masculinity is giving the appropriate response at the appropriate time. He says, this is a stunning observation. Never has there been a generation of men with so little direct influence. I got off in a circle. From childhood by a strong, healthy male template. And once a generation of men is raised in this feminized, controlled environment, the sequential male template is marred. Did you get that? If they're raised in this environment, the sequential, in other words, each generation of copying is a little bit weaker than the base one. The sequential male template is marred, and the next generation of fathers pass down this feminized template to their sons, and the problem is compounded. We would call that, in Christian terms, generational curses. They call it a problem compounded. Now remember, this is critical. I said a healthy man also possesses soft traits. But those soft traits are only desirable in the context of his manliness. Just like a healthy woman possesses assertiveness. But that assertiveness is only desirable and attractive in the context of her femininity. I want to say that one more time because that's real important. We're not suggesting that a masculine man doesn't possess some of the softer qualities of a woman or gentle qualities or the compassion. We said it many times before that Jesus, multiple times before he performed the miracle, you see this refrain, he was moved with compassion.